Ryan Melcher was Doris Day's only grandson, yet he had not seen her for 14 years when she passed away at the age of 97. When the news of her death broke, Ryan did not receive a phone call or a private message. He found out through Facebook, just like the rest of the world. This shocking detail revealed how distant Doris Day's private life had become from the image the public knew and loved. The woman famous for singing Secret Love had many secrets of her own, including a powerful manager who kept family members away, a financial betrayal worth millions of dollars, and a deeply guarded life hidden behind high walls in Carmel. For many years, Doris Day was America's sweetheart, but the real woman behind that smile was far more complex. After her death, Ryan Melcher finally chose to speak about the grandmother the world adored but never truly knew. Doris Day was born Doris Mary Ann Kappelhoff on April 3, 1922, in Cincinnati, Ohio. She grew up in a modest, working-class neighborhood with her parents, William and Alma. Her father was a music teacher, and her mother was a homemaker who worked hard to keep the family together. Doris had two older brothers, but one of them, Richard, died before she was born. This early family tragedy left a lasting impact on her household and shaped Doris into a strong and determined person from a very young age. When Doris was still a child, her parents divorced, which was rare and deeply upsetting during that time period. She was mostly raised by her mother, and together they struggled through the harsh years of the Great Depression. Despite these challenges, Doris stood out as a lively and energetic child with a strong will and natural charm. Even as a young girl, Doris showed signs of extraordinary determination. At just 12 years old, she entered a contest where she amazed everyone by standing on her hands for more than 3 hours. Her prize was free dance lessons, and she happily accepted them. Dancing quickly became her greatest passion, and she dreamed of becoming a professional dancer one day. She practiced constantly and imagined a future on stage. However, just as her dreams were beginning to take shape, her life changed in a sudden and heartbreaking way. When Doris was 14, she was involved in a terrible car accident. A train crashed into the car she was riding in, and her leg was badly shattered. The injury was so severe that doctors feared they might have to amputate her leg. For more than a year, Doris was unable to walk and had to endure multiple painful surgeries. Her dream of becoming a dancer seemed to disappear overnight. During her long recovery, Doris struggled emotionally, but she found comfort in music. She spent hours listening to the radio and singing along to her favorite songs, especially those by Ella Fitzgerald. Singing became a way for her to escape pain and sadness. Her mother noticed her talent and decided to help her nurture it. She found Doris a singing teacher named Grace Rain. Grace immediately recognized Doris's ability and later said she was the most talented student she had ever taught. By the time Doris was 15, she was already singing professionally. Her first paid job was performing at a small Chinese restaurant, where she earned $5 a night. It was not much money, but it was an important first step. One evening, while performing at a local nightclub, Doris caught the attention of bandleader Barney Rapp. He had been searching for a female singer and knew immediately that Doris was special. However, there was a problem. Doris was still underage, and clubs that served alcohol did not allow performers her age. Determined not to lose the opportunity, Doris lied about her age and claimed she was 18. She was nervous about being discovered, but her desire to perform was stronger than her fear. In 1939, when Doris was just 17, Barney suggested she change her name. He felt that her last name, Kappelhoff, was too long and difficult for audiences to remember. After hearing her sing the song day after day, he suggested the name Doris Day. At first, she disliked it and thought it sounded too artificial, but over time she accepted it. That name would soon become famous around the world. Doris's career reached a turning point when she joined Les Brown's band on March 15, 1940. She was only 18 years old, and the opportunity nearly slipped away because of her nerves. Before her audition, Doris was so anxious that she shook uncontrollably and even became physically ill backstage. Les Brown himself had to calm her down and remind her of her talent. With his encouragement, she stepped onto the stage and sang Embraceable You. The band was stunned by her voice, and she was immediately hired. Life on the road with the band was demanding, and emotional challenges followed. On Valentine's Day in 1941, while touring, Doris learned that her brother Paul had died in a car accident. Devastated by the loss, she still chose to perform that night. Her pain poured into her singing, and the audience was deeply moved. This ability to express real emotion through music became one of her greatest strengths. The defining moment of her time with Les Brown's band came in 1945 with the recording of Sentimental Journey. Les Brown initially disliked the song, calling it old-fashioned, but Doris believed strongly in it. She was so convinced of its potential that she threatened to quit if they did not record it. Eventually, he agreed. The song became a massive success, selling over 1 million copies in its first year and becoming a symbol of hope for soldiers returning home after World War II. Interestingly, Doris had a cold when she recorded it, which gave her voice a husky, emotional tone that listeners loved. In 1947, Doris decided to pursue a solo career. She signed a 7-year contract with Columbia Records worth $1 million, making her one of the first female artists to receive such a deal. Despite the excitement, the beginning was rocky. At her first recording session, she disliked the songs chosen for her and refused to sing them. After a tense argument, she was allowed to choose her own material. This decision led to the recording of It's Magic, which became a huge hit, sold over 2 million copies, and earned her an Academy Award nomination. Even more impressive was the fact that Doris recorded the song in just one take, stunning everyone in the studio. Another major milestone came with the song Secret Love in 1953, written for her film Calamity Jane. At first, Doris hated the song and thought it was too sentimental. She refused to sing it, causing frustration among the filmmakers. Eventually, after much persuasion, she agreed. On the day of recording, she was emotionally exhausted after a night of arguing with her husband, Marty Melcher. Despite being upset and crying, she recorded the song in a single take, pouring her emotions into it. The result was breathtaking. The song became a worldwide hit, topped the charts for 19 weeks, sold millions of copies, and won an Academy Award. Doris, however, was too shy to perform it live at the Oscars due to severe stage fright. As her music career flourished, Doris's Hollywood journey also began unexpectedly. Songwriters Jules Stein and Sammy Cahn encouraged her to try acting. When the lead actress dropped out of the film Romance on the High Seas in 1948, Doris was given the chance. She had never acted before but impressed everyone with her natural presence. The film was a success and launched her acting career. Throughout the 1950s and early 1960s, Doris became one of Hollywood's biggest stars, starring in hit musicals and romantic comedies. Films like Calamity Jane, The Pajama Game, Love Me or Leave Me, and Pillow Talk showcased her versatility and charm. She became the most popular box office star in America for several years and earned millions. Despite her success, Doris faced personal struggles and felt pressure to maintain her perfect public image. Later in life, she stepped away from Hollywood and devoted herself to animal welfare, a cause close to her heart since childhood. She founded organizations to protect animals and used her fame to create real change. Even in her late 80s, she surprised fans by releasing a new album, proving her passion for music never faded. Doris Day lived a life filled with triumph, heartbreak, strength, and compassion, far deeper than the image the world saw on screen. She released a collection of songs that had actually been recorded back in the 1980s, many of them written by her late son, Terry Melcher. This album was deeply personal and filled with emotion, almost like a conversation between past and present. One of the most touching tracks, Happy Endings, even featured Terry's voice singing alongside Doris, making it especially meaningful for fans who knew their close bond. The album was warmly received and became a surprising success. It reached number 9 on the UK Albums Chart, which made Doris Day the oldest artist ever to have a top 10 album with new material. In the United States, it marked her first appearance on the Billboard charts in nearly 50 years. Despite this incredible achievement, Doris did not return to public life. She chose instead to remain private, focusing her energy on animal welfare, which had become the center of her world. Her final public message came in 2019 when she turned 97. She thanked her fans for their lifelong support and encouraged them to continue helping animals through her foundation. Doris Day's personal life had been marked by pain from a very young age, especially when it came to her marriages. At just 17, she married Al Jordan, a 23-year-old trombonist. Her mother strongly warned her against the marriage, sensing danger, but Doris was determined to follow her heart. Sadly, her mother's fears came true almost immediately. Right after their wedding in April 1941, the abuse began. On their very first day as husband and wife, Jordan saw Doris kiss another musician on the cheek as a polite thank you for a gift. Enraged by jealousy, he dragged her out of the theater, through the streets of New York, and back to their hotel room, where he beat her brutally. This violence became a pattern. Jordan was extremely controlling and jealous, constantly accusing Doris of cheating. He insulted her, called her cruel names, and even slapped her in public after seeing her picture on a magazine cover. Things became even more terrifying when Doris became pregnant. Jordan tried to force her into having an illegal abortion. When she refused, he beat her so badly that she nearly lost the baby. The most horrifying moment came when Doris was 8 months pregnant. Jordan hid a gun in his car and drove her to a remote area, planning to kill her and their unborn child before ending his own life. In that moment of sheer terror, Doris managed to calm him down with quick thinking and gentle words, preventing a tragedy. However, the trauma stayed with her forever. From that point on, she could never sit in the front seat of a car without feeling intense fear. After their son Terry was born in February 1942, Doris tried to hold the marriage together, hoping Jordan would change. But when he began hurting their baby, she knew she had to escape. Finding the strength to leave was incredibly difficult, but she did it to protect her child. She filed for divorce, ending a marriage that had nearly destroyed her. Sadly, this was not the last time Doris would find herself involved with a troubled man. Her second marriage was to saxophonist George Weidler. They met while performing in the same band, and the connection felt immediate. Doris, now a young single mother, was drawn to his charm and hoped this relationship would bring stability. They married in 1946 and moved to Hollywood, believing it would open doors for both of them. At first, things seemed hopeful, but cracks soon appeared. George was not ready to be a stepfather and made it clear he did not want Doris's mother and son living with them. As Doris's career began to rise, George grew insecure and distant. Only 8 months after their wedding, he asked for a divorce. His reason was devastating. He did not want to live in her shadow or be known as Mr. Doris Day. The marriage ended quickly, leaving Doris heartbroken once again. In 1949, after the divorce was finalized, she returned to Cincinnati with her son, seeking comfort and time to heal. In 1951, Doris married Martin Melcher, believing she had finally found lasting happiness. Instead, this relationship caused one of the greatest betrayals of her life. Martin became her manager and controlled her finances for 17 years. Along with his business partner, Jerome Rosenthal, he secretly stole her money and made disastrous financial decisions. Doris trusted Martin completely and never questioned him. When he suddenly died in 1968, the truth came crashing down. Doris discovered that her entire fortune, worth what would be around $150 million today, was gone. Even worse, she was left with $500,000 in debt. As if that were not enough, Martin had secretly signed Doris up for a CBS television show without her knowledge. The woman who had been one of the biggest movie stars in Hollywood was suddenly broke and forced into television work she never wanted. Doris sued Jerome Rosenthal in 1974 and won a settlement of $22 million. However, after long legal battles and insurance negotiations, she received only a small portion of that amount. Her son later explained that the final sum was far less than people believed. This betrayal shattered Doris's heart. She had trusted Martin with her life and career, and he had lied to her for nearly 2 decades. The pain of this experience pushed her even further away from the spotlight. One of the hardest consequences of Martin's betrayal was the television show he had signed her into. Doris had planned to retire after her last film in 1968, but she had no choice but to continue working to pay off the debt he left behind. She only learned about the show a few weeks before filming began and was horrified to discover the advance money from CBS had already been spent. Financial stress was heavy, but it was not the only struggle Doris faced. For most of her life, Doris battled anxiety and depression, even at the height of her fame. She suffered from panic attacks and constant fear. In 1952, while filming I'll See You in My Dreams, she experienced a breakdown so severe that she believed she was dying from heart disease. Instead of receiving proper help, Doris turned to alcohol to numb her pain. By the early 1950s, her mental health was at its lowest. She avoided public appearances, turned down interviews, and struggled privately. In 1954, while filming Young at Heart, she broke down in tears after an emotional scene, and co-star Frank Sinatra had to comfort her. Doris later admitted she felt like she was close to a complete breakdown during that time. Shockingly, Doris did not seek professional therapy until 1971, when she was nearly 50 years old. For 4 years, she worked closely with a therapist to address her lifelong anxiety and depression. She later said that therapy finally helped her find peace and understand herself better. Doris Day had only one child, her son Terry Melcher, born on February 8, 1942. For several years, she raised him alone. When she married Martin Melcher, he adopted Terry and gave him his last name. However, their home life was often tense, and Martin could be harsh and controlling. As Terry grew older, he carved his own path in music. By the 1960s, he was a successful producer at Columbia Records. He helped create major hits like Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, Turn, Turn for the Byrds and worked with Paul Revere and the Raiders on several successful songs. Terry later collaborated with the Beach Boys and produced their hit Kokomo in 1988, which became their first #1 song in 22 years. Terry's life was not without danger. In 1968, he lived in a house on Cielo Drive in Los Angeles with his girlfriend, Candice Bergen. That same house later became infamous as the site of the Sharon Tate murders carried out by followers of Charles Manson. Terry had met Manson through Beach Boys drummer Dennis Wilson. Manson wanted Terry's help getting a record deal, but Terry refused. Some believe this rejection made Manson angry. Terry moved out of the house shortly before the murders occurred. While no one knows for sure, some have speculated that Terry himself may have been the original target. After Doris Day's death on May 13, 2019, her only grandson, Ryan Melcher, shared a heartbreaking message. He revealed that he had been estranged from his grandmother for 14 years and learned of her passing through social media, just like millions of fans. The distance between them began after Terry Melcher died in 2004 from melanoma at the age of 62. Doris initially reached out to Ryan and invited him to dinner, offering hope for reconnection. However, before the meeting could happen, Doris's business manager, Bob Bashara, intervened. Ryan says Bashara questioned his intentions and ultimately told him he would not be allowed to see Doris. This marked the beginning of a long and painful separation. Ryan later admitted he regretted not trying harder to reconnect, though he said security fences and guards around Doris's home made access difficult. Over the years, Ryan built his own life and became a real estate agent in Carmel. He also claimed that Bashara took control of Doris's Animal Foundation, replacing longtime board members with his own family. Doris's publicist later offered a different perspective, saying attempts were made to reconnect, including an invitation for Doris's 90th birthday. The truth likely lies somewhere between misunderstanding and heartbreak. In her final years, Doris lived quietly on her ranch in Carmel, surrounded by animals she loved deeply. She avoided public appearances, turned down major honors, and lived a simple life. To those around her, she was not a Hollywood legend, but a kind woman devoted to animals and peace. Her later life was a mix of privacy, unresolved family pain, and deep compassion, showing that behind the bright smile the world knew was a woman who endured immense struggle and strength.